for agreeing to take part in this interview. I know your schedule is so busy at the moment.
My pleasure. Happy to fill it with things like this.
Awesome. So I just wanted to run through a few questions with you, but firstly, for the people who don't really know what you do or haven't seen any of your speeches, can you just give us maybe an overview of what has led you here today?
Yeah, well, 3.5 years ago, I went vegan, and that same day I also took a year-long vow of silence to raise awareness for animals and promote peace over violence. I spent that year travelling around Australia. I cycled 5,000 kilometres from one end of Australia to another. And when I spoke for the first time after a year, it was in an interview live on TV, and that interview went viral, was seen by millions of people. It was a very strong and passionate plea for people to live in alignment with their core values, which I believe are vegan values of non-violence and peace and respect. And since then I've been traveling around the world giving speeches for free, trying to inspire non-vegans to become vegan, trying to inspire vegans to become activists. I was tattooed for 25 hours last year, 25 hours straight, to raise some money for charities. And basically, I just think this is a very, very important message, something that we all need to be aware of, because we are either contributing to a massive injustice or we are on the side of justice. And I think people they've had this hidden from them. They deserve to know the truth, and so that's the role that I've taken on.
Okay, great. Well, let's just talk about your journey with veganism. I know that you kind of initially started as a personal trainer. I don't know whether you still do that at the moment with everything else that you're going through. Exactly. But I know that you obviously take care of your own fitness. So how do you get enough protein to sustain your workouts when you are trying to build muscle?
Good question. That was my first question when I started thinking about cutting animal products from my diet. Will I be able to get enough protein? Will I be able to get enough iron and all these different nutrients that I thought I might be deficient in? Actually, it's so easy to get enough protein. I actually think about protein less now as a vegan than I ever did. I used to always be trying to eat as much meat as I could, every single meal. And actually, it's so easy to get enough protein. All you need to do is get enough calories. There's lots of plant foods that are high in protein, like tempeh and tofu and nuts and beans. And, we've got vegan protein powders if you want to use them, pea protein and rice protein and hemp protein. But yeah, it's very easy to get enough protein, and it's definitely not an issue for me. And that goes with all the other nutrients as well. In fact, the studies show that you're likely to have less nutrient deficiencies as a vegan compared to somebody on a standard diet. And you take the meat off, so you replace that though with more nutrient dense food. And the benefit of getting protein from plant sources is you get that protein without the saturated fat, without the cholesterol, without the high concentrated doses of pesticides, without the hormones, without the eating that food that is a product of torture and violence and putting that into your body. So you get what you need from the plant-based diet minus all of the things that you don't want.
Sounds great. So I know that you became vegetarian first. Why did you transition into veganism? What's the difference?
Well, I went vegetarian for health reasons. I learned that you can be healthier without eating meat. And I always thought that you needed to eat meat to be healthy. So that was actually a big shock to me to learn that you can reduce your chances of getting so many diseases, including the biggest killer that humans are faced with, heart disease, and likely extend your life. So I was excited by that. But then when I learned that there's, what happens to the animals, which I'd seen before, but seeing it with a fresh perspective that we didn't need to eat animals to be healthy, I couldn't think of any justification for all this unnecessary violence and cruelty and oppression and killing. And that's not the kind of person I am. I'm against those things. So I realized that I needed to, I stayed vegetarian for the animals. But then when I learned, I was just not eating meat. And then when I learned that there's as much cruelty in dairy and eggs and wool and leather and places that exploit animals for entertainment and all our use of animals. They're not here for us to use. They're not our property. Their lives don't belong to us. And when I realized that, I realized, well, being vegetarian isn't actually enough. I'm against cruelty to all animals, not just some. I'm against oppression across the board, not just to certain types of animals. And so that's when I realized I needed to become vegan, which had always seemed extreme, but all of a sudden it seemed like the most normal, chill thing I could think of. Sure. And the way I used to live my life was what seemed extreme.
That makes sense. So what do you say about people who choose to buy free range or humanely sourced meat? Isn't that more ethical?
I think that it's good that people obviously care about animals, but if you care about animals, you don't buy free range and you don't buy humanely slaughtered animals, because free range means next to nothing for animals. They're still abused in many ways, they're still harmed, they're still used as a product, and they all end up at the same slaughterhouse. Even the most organic, free range, grass-fed animal will still end up getting pushed into a gas chamber and killed, or having their throats slit. And that's, humane slaughter is the biggest oxymoron I can think of. There's no humane way to murder. That's what we're really talking about. There's no humane way to take the life of somebody who doesn't want to die. Humane means to show compassion. How can you compassionately kill someone that wants to live? If you think about it in human context, it's ridiculous. There's no humane way to murder somebody. Even if they don't feel it, even if they don't see it coming, you've still robbed that individual of their life, their greatest gift. And to do that is extremely cruel. One of the most punishable offences that we can do. So it's the same with other animals. When you rob them of their life, that is an immense cruelty that you have inflicted on this innocent being. And I think anyone who's buying free range or humanely slaughtered, great that you're trying to be better, but realise that they are just slogans used by the industry that don't care at all about animals. They only care about making money from you. And if you think that you want to do better by animals, the only way to do it, the least we should do, is be vegan, because anything less than being vegan is causing completely unnecessary, needless cruelty, violence and killing.
Can you explain a bit about the egg and dairy industry? Because a lot of people don't know why that's inhumane.
Yeah, I did not know either. I was shocked to learn about dairy and eggs and how cruel they are. They're, in many ways, in some ways, they could be said to be even more cruel than the meat industry. They live longer, and because they live longer, they suffer more in more ways. So, for example, the dairy industry, they're forcibly impregnated. The mother cows, they're forcibly impregnated. So that means someone will shove their arm into the cow's anus and then inject her vagina with bull semen. And they do that on an apparatus commonly known as a rape rack in the industry. And then after her 9-month pregnancy, she'll give birth. And when she gives birth, her babies are taken from her. This is a highly traumatic experience for the mother, because cows are a very maternal animal. And so they often cry and bellow for days, pointing in the same direction and returning to the same spot where they last saw their babies. The baby boys, because they never produce milk, they're sent to a slaughterhouse, they're shot in the head, and then they have their throats slit. These baby animals, like these innocent beings, the most gentle creatures, they've done nothing wrong, and this is how they're treated. And then the baby girls have the same fate as their mother, forcibly impregnated on a rape rack, babies taken from her, hooked up to milking machines that can be quite painful and cause different kinds of udder infections. And then after 5 to 7 years of this constant process, they're so severely exploited they can't continue. And they're also sent to the same slaughterhouse as their babies. That's dairy, that's just for a piece of cheese on a sandwich, or for a bit of milk in your coffee. All that suffering, all that abuse for that, and we have so many alternatives. So it's just so barbaric and so uncivilized. And in the egg industry, it's quite similar. The baby boys, they are put into a machine called a macerator, which is like a large blender, and they are blended up alive because they'll never produce eggs. They have been bred in the egg industry to lay an egg almost every single day, and that is a huge stress on their body. In nature, they would lay approximately 20 eggs in a year. So all this extra stress on their body, often eggs become inbound, they get stuck in their bodies, and their life expectancy, if they were able to live a full life, would be cut much shorter, but they don't. As soon as they start producing less eggs, they are also sent to a slaughterhouse to have their throat slit as well.
So for someone who is considering erasing meat, fish, dairy, eggs from their diet, it can be quite a daunting idea. Where should they start?
Yeah, it can be daunting. You're going to probably think it's going to be so hard, because that's what I felt. I thought that I couldn't even enjoy a meal if there wasn't some piece of meat in it. I actually did not think that a meal was a meal unless it had like a part of a dead animal chopped up in there somewhere. And that's just kind of how we've been conditioned to believe. That's what we see food as, just animals mostly. and that's the centerpiece on the table, you know, a big dead chicken or something like that, a big dead turkey, or so. Yeah, it's gonna seem like a very alien thing to start eating vegan foods, but actually you're probably already eating so many vegan foods that are probably quite delicious, you know, and every single one of your favorite meals, there is a vegan version of it. We've got vegan pasta, we've got vegan lasagna, we've got vegan ice cream, we've got vegan chocolate, vegan cakes, vegan burritos, vegan nachos, vegan curries, vegan stir fries, like you name it, there's a vegan version of it. And this isn't just some bland food. I've spoke to thousands of vegans. We are so into the food we eat because it is delicious and tasty, and you know, you enjoy it on another level because it's exciting, because it's vegan, you know, it's not as, there's no cruelty involved, it's so much healthier for you. So where would I say to start? Just start looking up vegan recipes. Breakfast, vegan recipes, look it up on Google. Choose a few that you enjoy. You might, you know, standard for me, I have oats with berries and maybe maple syrup or peanut butter or something. I might have a smoothie, I might have avocado on toast, I might have scrambled tofu, which is like scrambled eggs. That's breakfast, you know, and there's like, then you just look up lunch vegan recipes, dinner vegan recipes. There's millions and millions of them. So there's no shortage. So I would say just choose a few recipes and start making them instead of getting cow's milk at the supermarket. Get almond milk, rice milk, soy milk, coconut milk, hazelnut milk. It's easy, so much easier than you would expect, and infinitely more rewarding.
You make it sound so simple.
It's so incredibly simple.
So do you think that veganism is or should be a blanket rule for everyone? And what do you think about the people who maybe can't afford specialty foods?
I absolutely do think that veganism should be a blanket rule for everyone, because if we're thinking from the victim's point of view, absolutely, you know, they don't deserve what they go through, and it's wrong for us to inflict that on them for no better reason than because we like the way they taste, or because it's our culture, or because we've been doing it for such a long time. They are not justifications for violence against innocent beings. So, and not just that, I don't think we should force it on people. Like, I mean, I would if we could, but we can't. But I'm not trying to convince anybody of something they don't already agree with. Everybody, 99% of people agree that unnecessary animal cruelty is wrong. So by your own belief, you know, veganism's already in your heart. And all I'm trying to encourage people to do, and I think all that any vegan is trying to encourage people to do, is to just align your beliefs and your values with your actions. And that's what being vegan is. That's what being vegan is. So what do you say about people who don't have enough money? Something like that? Yeah. The beauty of being vegan is that if you don't have a lot of money, you can still do it. In fact, the cheapest foods in the supermarket are vegan. Rice, beans, potatoes, oats. You know, you can be perfectly healthy and be vegan with very little money, you know, thankfully. So even if that's a worry for you, there's actually a really good book out called Eat Vegan on $4 a day. But you could probably even do it cheaper than that if you really needed to. And so yeah, that's a beauty. And not only that, but you're likely to save money in the future by not paying as much healthcare costs, not taking as much time off work, and yeah, so you know, it's long-term benefits as well.
Awesome. So I know that you've struggled with eating disorders in the past. So what advice would you give to those who kind of struggle with that and want to try veganism? Because it can be quite tough in that situation.
Yeah, I had a raging eating disorder. It started with just very bad binge eating, and that led to bulimia. That started when I was in hospital. I had cancer when I was 17. And I was on this very high dose of steroids, which made me want to eat constantly, and that developed into like this binge eating thing where I'd use food for to sort of soothe or just emotional eating. And that was such a battle for me. That actually was what was making it challenging for me to be vegan sooner. I'd go good for a couple of weeks. I wouldn't binge, so I wouldn't, you know, it would be all good. But then one day, in a moment of weakness, I'd binge on ice cream or something like that. And it was really hard. One thing that I did notice when I went vegan is that, well, first thing, what I did, I made a commitment. I said, that's it, from this day on, I'm making a vow with myself that no matter what, I'm not eating any animal products again, so I'm vegan from this day on. That's it. I'm sick of these like deliberate slip-ups I'm having. I'm sick of it. And I made a very like conscious decision on a day. And I also on that day said, and I'm never binging and purging again. And both of those things I've stayed 100% true to. There's been no slip-ups at all. But I think that was a very useful thing to do, to make a very strong commitment to yourself. And look, if you do make that commitment and you slip up, just get straight back on, you know. No one's perfect. You do the best that you can do. A book helped me very much called End Emotional Eating by Dr. Jennifer Tate. But I think that just remembering what they go through and, you know, working on getting a better relationship with food. Something I was doing was eating no carbs, no sugar, no rice, no potatoes, anything like that. And when I went vegan, I started eating those foods in abundance. And, you know, I think that helped me a lot because I had been starving myself off my main source of fuel. So as soon as I started eating fruit again, you know, that's what nature wants us to eat. That's why it's delicious in its raw, natural form, where really no other food is. And I started eating what my body really thrived from, and I stopped craving sweet foods and things like that as much, which are the foods that I used to binge on. So there's lots of little ways that being vegan helped me, and yeah, I'm so grateful, you know, apart from being so much better for the animals and my own health and the planet, it really did help me like just let go of that eating disorder once and for all, because although I stopped eating certain foods, they were the foods that weren't making me happy anyway. Like I enjoyed the taste of meat and everything, but I didn't want to be eating them anymore. I let them go, and instead I added all these new plant foods, and yeah, it just made things so much better.
So vegans make up a really small percentage of the population. What do you say to people who feel that perhaps veganism isn't going to make a difference?
Well, even if you think that veganism isn't going to make a difference, you should still do what you believe is right, regardless. You don't know if you're going to make a difference. You know, I never knew that I was going to do what I'm doing today, and I've got, for example, just one thing. I've got one speech that's got over 11 million views, and the person who said to me and got me started on this journey had no idea that he was going to inspire somebody who inspired, or at least reach, millions of people. So I think that's wrong to think, oh, it's not going to make a difference. You never know the impact you're going to have. Right now, veganism is the fastest growing social justice movement of our time, or animal rights is the fastest growing social justice movement of our time. It has to start somewhere. It has to start small and grow, and we need to be the ones who realize, hey, this is an injustice, this is wrong. You can't just realize that and not do anything about it. That's the wrong thing to do. You need to have the knowledge and understanding, and then to take action with that. And you know, imagine if people, and a lot of people probably did believe, oh, slavery's never going to end, you know, why bother trying? Maybe we still have slavery today. And I mean, we do in some parts of the world, but also we've come a long way in abolishing that in a lot of places. And it's the same with this, with animal rights. You have to believe that actually what you are doing is very meaningful and significant, and it does matter, and you are stepping onto the side of justice. And the more people that do that, the more people that will follow. And I definitely believe in a world where animal exploitation is a thing of the past. You know, and just like today, there's still some murderers, there's still some, you know, some people that do the wrong thing. But currently, yes, vegans are a very small percentage of the population, maybe a few percent. And I think I see no reason why it can't be the total opposite, and only a few percent continue to needlessly abuse and kill animals. And that's the future that we're working for.
Cool. And so obviously with what you do, you inspire many people to go vegan. What's your biggest inspiration, or who?
Well, the animals, I guess, you know, the unfairness of it, the injustice of it, how unfair it is that they are so innocent, they are so vulnerable, they are like children. You know, they deserve so much of our care, not of our wrath. So that really fuels me, just how unfair it is that we do this to them. They can't even speak for themselves, you know, and they scream and we don't even listen. And we've made up all these lies about them, you know, that they don't feel pain or that they don't matter or all these things. And that's what really fuels me, the unfairness of how we treat them. I can't stand that. So that's probably my biggest fuel, you know, thinking about them. And, you know, a very good quote by Gary Yorsky, who is a animal rights activist as well. He said something that really stuck in my mind. He said, we should speak up for the animals the way that you would want to be spoken for if it was you in their situation. And I know if I was in their situation, I'd be begging for people to go vegan and spread the vegan message. So that definitely fuels me as well. And also the belief that people are good. You know, people are good at heart, and I'm not, you know, we're talking about good people that have been kind of conned into doing a very bad thing. So I'm definitely fueled as well by the belief that good people, when they realize what they're doing is wrong and that there's another way to live that is far superior in terms of being more ethical and healthier and better for this planet, my belief is that they'll change. So that fuels me in a big way as well.
That's great. And just the last question. So what's your key message to all meat eaters, pescatarians and vegetarians?
My key message would just be to realize that you have, you know, I'm speaking from my own experience here. Realize that what you're doing, what you're contributing to, although it's so normal and everyone's doing it, it's actually so wrong. And if you really think about it, it's probably very conflicting with your own beliefs, what you have about non-violence and about animal cruelty and things like that. What I would suggest you do is start educating yourself. There's some fantastic documentaries out there. I'd recommend Earthlings. I'd recommend Forks Over Knives, Cowspiracy. I've got a speech called This Speech Is Your Wake Up Call. There's even more out there, but they're all very useful to watch. And I think by getting that motivation and understanding, you'll be inspired to change. And I'd just say that it is so worth your time to invest some of your energy in learning about this, because this is one of the best gifts that we can give ourselves, and it's the right thing to do by the animals. And it feels so good when you go vegan. You ask any vegan what's one of the best things you've ever done, almost all of them will say gone vegan, because it feels so good when you do live in alignment with your core values. And because we're so far in the other direction, going vegan is just such a good feeling. So check it out. Okay, thank you.
James.
My pleasure.